Shakespeare explores the theme of ambition through various characters in Macbeth, and perhaps the most prominent portrayals of ambition are seen through the characters of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. However, I would argue that Banquo displays just as much ambition as his counterparts, albeit in different ways. Traditional representations and portrayals of Banquo depict him as a pensive, thoughtful, and passive character, a representation colored by his interactions with other characters in the play, depicting him as a foil character to Macbeth. However, a close analysis of Banquo's language in the play reveals that he is potentially just as ambitious as Macbeth, manifesting his ambition rather through inaction, a distinct contrast to Macbeth's manifestation of ambition through action. It is because of the nature of Banquo's prophecies that simply require him to protect his son. His ambition is manifested through inaction. In Act 3, Scene 1, Shakespeare uses the medium of soliloquy to reveal Banquo's internal thoughts. This scene is particularly important as it is Banquo's only soliloquy in the entire play, and therefore our sole opportunity to potentially understand his intentions and who he really is without our perception being colored by his interactions with the other characters. Because Shakespeare gives us no indication on how this scene is to be performed, it leaves us with at least two possibilities on the tone intended to be used. Our first possibility is that Banquo may truly be a reflective and pensive man, just as the scene is traditionally performed and depicted, where he simply reflects on the events that have occurred in the past few weeks and on the future. The first line could be read as, "Thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all as the weird woman promised." However, a second possibility is that Shakespeare intended to depict Banquo as a bitter, jealous, and opportunistic best friend in his only soliloquy. The first line could be read as, "Thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all as the weird woman promised." This second possibility reveals itself to be more plausible on close analysis and reading due to Banquo's opportunistic language in the line, "Yet it was said," and rhetorical question, "and set me up in hope," which highlights that he is indeed ambitious and is highly hopeful and contemplative about his prophecies coming true, just as they did for Macbeth. On the other hand, when Banquo says, "Hush no more," Shakespeare might be signaling here that Banquo is conscious of his ambition and is able to restrain it, therefore perhaps indicating he has a greater conscience than Macbeth. Another theory could be that he says this line not out of guilt, but because other characters approach the stage and interrupt his private soliloquy. In Act 2, Scene 1, Macbeth and Banquo have a brief conversation where, interestingly, Banquo initiates the topic of the Weird Sisters, which suggests that he has been thinking about the prophecies. This indicates his ambitious nature. There is dramatic irony here as Macbeth calls himself a friend, intending to try to avoid Banquo from suspecting him. But Banquo's ambition is further revealed in this scene, as it can be implied that Banquo might know that Macbeth will do something to manifest his ambition, most probably by murdering Duncan, but yet does nothing. This complicity is also evident in Banquo's soliloquy, in which Banquo suspects Macbeth has played most foully, and yet again does nothing. Perhaps Banquo's secret ambition is urging him to see if Macbeth will become king, because if he does, that increases the likelihood of Banquo becoming father to a line of kings. In the line, "So I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchised, and allegiance clear, I shall be counselled," Banquo is saying that he is willing to be in cahoots with Macbeth so long as he can keep his conscience clear. Banquo is selfish and complicit because he's staying quiet and letting Macbeth do all the hard work. Even after being complicit and having knowledge of what Macbeth has done, he does not take any action because this is his way of manifesting his ambition through inaction. Some have argued that Shakespeare intended for Macbeth to be a cautionary tale of how ambition is a man's fatal flaw. I respectfully disagree with this interpretation due to its inconsistencies, ignoring the fact that Macduff and Malcolm exhibit just as much ambition as Macbeth does, but yet emerge as victors of the play. Rather, I assert that all the main players, including Banquo, exhibit different forms of ambition, and Shakespeare is merely exploring these different forms of ambition. In the case of Banquo, Shakespeare highlights that ambition does not need to be necessarily active, but can be passive and inactive as well. Banquo is a man equally ambitious as his counterparts, who had his own goals and objectives which did not necessitate active ambition. The ending of Macbeth leaves open whether Banquo's passive ambition really paid off.